Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host Ren, and today we continue with the Belmont Saga, Part 3, Chapter 3, The Demon. Last week, Paymaster Stenstrom goes searching for his two lost companions, Lord A-Ram and Private Taara. He exits the bridge and is immediately assailed by noises and voices and titterings in the darkened part of the ship, and that's most of the ship. The only place that there's really lights and fresh air is the bridge. And he's venturing down into the depths of the ship. It seems like a veritable haunted house, and that had been the rumor, that the Seeker was haunted, and he's hearing the ship talk to him. It seems to know things about him. It asks him, about his mother and how he failed her, that he wasn't there for her death. He steels himself against this onslaught, and he uses a chromatic holy stone to seek out Private Taara and A-Ram, have him show the way, and he is encountered by four figures in the dark standing before him. He draws his guns, and when he looks back up, the figures are gone. And as he continues into the dark, he encounters two, I think three, but I think he missed, soul devourers. They reveal themselves. They say they have Taara and A-Ram, and they, meaning plural, there's more than one, there's quite a few of them, that they're there for him, not for them, but they will kill them if he doesn't play ball. But as they venture deeper into the ship, the soul devourer he's talking to loses patience, attacks, he kills it with his ints. Another one attacks, he kills it. He hears a third one and shoots, but apparently misses. And then he hears a voice saying, come to us, and we have them. So that's where we left this chapter here. Very important chapter, very pivotal chapter, and it's a long chapter. It's just under 20 pages long. So enough of my bull hunkus. Let's proceed immediately. Part 3, Chapter 3, The Demon? Down the corridor was the Sisters' Priory, a cloistered set of small rooms where the Sisterhood of Light stayed when aboard a fleet vessel. They often came and went from the Priory and oftentimes disappeared into it, vanishing even when the ship was far out in the deep sea. Many times, new and unfamiliar faces emerged from the Priory only to vanish back into it just as quickly. Stenstrom thought it was a mystical gateway of some sort. His sorceress training told him such things could exist. The chromatic veered in the direction of the Priory entrance and stopped. Taara was somewhere inside, A-Ram as well probably, along with who knows how many soul devourers. Within was a small abandoned antechamber with an innocent door leading into the interior. All that lay beyond the door was forbidden to any but the sisters. Even the captain of the ship was not allowed past it. Stenstrom himself certainly had never set foot in one. Ints at the ready, he opened the door. It swung open with a mild squeak. Musty darkness lay ahead. He entered. Inside were a confusion of modest rooms and chambers littered with overturned chairs, beds, dressers, and other forgotten bits of furniture once used by the sisters. All rather sparse and unassuming, now dark and abandoned. His arcane protections and warning devices were all sounding off at a steady rate. The interior of his HRN vibrated and squirmed as though it were infested with mice. There was danger all around.
Your soul!
Came a soul devourer out of the dark at a run. He shot it down. Another came, and then another, his int shot sending them away one trigger pull at a time. They came at him with no fear, faster than he could cock his hammers and fire. One reached out of the dark for his throat. He aimed and fired. Poof! Misfire! His cinnabar striker cracked and the int didn't fire. He was tackled in the midriff by the tittering soul devourer. They struggled for a moment as the monster wrangled to get at his soul. He plunged one Marzible after the next into its wiry body, burying the silver daggers up to the hilt, doing nothing. The monster wore a headdress of his daggers as it got its hands to his throat. He felt the tepid beginnings of his soul being siphoned away. A fast, whirling cone of gritty wind like a sudden dust storm plowed into the both of them. The soul devourer was lifted up and pulled away in a roar into the dark where it disappeared. Stenstrom stood and readied himself for the next wave of them to attack. Silence. It became very quiet in the corridor of the priory. No groans, no moans or other hidden sounds, just blessed silence. His waiting imps shook. He sashed the one with the bad striker and waved up 3 marzibles, ready to go. "Bell," he heard from ahead. He saw a point of light emerge, strong and clear, threatening to blind him. He didn't wait. He fired his imps and let fly with his marzible. The corridor lit up in emerald green as the deadly globe shot out into the dark. He cocked his hammer and conjured up more daggers. "Bell, how could you?" he heard a hurt-sounding voice reply. He squinted to see. The point of light grew into a blinding beam. Someone approached in the dark. "Bell, it's me." "Who are you?" he asked, shielding his eyes, his imp leveled. "It's Lily." "Liar," Stenstrom said, trying to keep his head. He took aim. All around him came the hissing of grit rubbing together like coarse sand, whipped up into a whirling storm. He blinked and covered his eyes with his sleeve. The wind abated. A lilting form emerged from the gloom ahead, holding a lantern. Tall and regal, inviting pink gown and blonde hair done up in pins and curls, a little parasol resting on her shoulder. It looked for all the world like Lily, his love. Lillian of Gamboa. He stepped back, imp at the ready. "Belle, it's me. It's Lily," she said, smiling. His danger detectors rattled, and his heart pounded. He struggled to maintain his bearing. You are not Lily," he said. "You cannot be Lily." "But why?" Her eyes glittered in the lantern light. "Why? Because I'm in the middle of open space on a dead, abandoned ship. Lily is thousands of stellar miles away, home on Cana, in Esther." She blushed a bit and raised the lantern. Her blue eyes sparkled. "But, Belle, don't I always arrive when you need me most? Am I not always there to help you?" She set the lantern down, reached out and placed her delicate hands on the barrel of his imp. "Perhaps you should fire your gun then. Perhaps you should just kill me." He struggled. This apparition was a soul devourer. It had to be. "Remember our first meeting in the chalk house? Remember me drawing my marten on you?" She laughed. "Seems so long ago, doesn't it?" "You are a soul devourer come to deceive me." "How could I know about the chalk house if I were a soul devourer?" "You could have read my thoughts or peered into my memories and regurgitated them back to me." Lily puzzled a moment. "I don't think soul devourers can do such things. Always so hungry and driven they are. They really aren't much into planning things, are they? They just eat." "How do you know about such creatures?" "They are spirits of the arcane and not generally known outside of Tyrol." Lily spun her parasol. "I know lots of things, Belle. Remember me giving you the idea to become a fleet paymaster? Remember me talking you into bribing people and doing questionable things in Calvert? Remember shopping for your coat with me? How happy I was! How happy! I remember all those things because I was there with you. Do you remember the afternoon I gave you the locket with my portrait? How hard I worked on it. It had to be perfect. Remember me offering you 5 years to explore your heart? Remember that? I sat there and had to watch you fall into the arms of one woman after the next. Your puppy dogs, I called them. How jealous I was. You wanted the 5 years, Lily. Well, did I? Did I really? Or did someone else make me say that? Well, who? Who made you? Lily smiled and held her hand out for him to take. I'll show you. Mesmerized by her beauty and used to submitting to Lily's wishes as a matter of habit, he nearly took it. He shook his head and remembered where he was and stepped back. I have to save Taara and A-Ram. Your friends? No harm shall come to them, I promise. How can you make such a promise? Lily came in close. He could feel her heat and smell her perfume, the same scent she always favored wearing. The soul devourer wearing her image certainly left nothing to chance. Come now, Belle. When have you ever known me not to keep a promise? She held her hand out, lit up in the yellowish light of the lantern, impatient for him to take it. He sashed his pistol and shook his hands, producing his various kit of protective holystones, prisms, and his astral plane detector. Will you submit to a few tests? He asked, showing them to her. You wish to inspect me with your arcane instrumentality? I do. Do you mind? Of course not. She gestured to a nearby side room. May I sit? Of course. Lily picked up the lantern and walked into the room. She waited for Stenstrom to offer her a chair. He picked one up, dusted it off, and set it down. She then placed the lantern on the table and properly seated herself, sitting with all the same grace and shape Lily always sat with. She looked up at him, waiting for him to begin the examination. He hoisted his prism to his right eye and carefully looked her over. If Lily was a soul devourer wearing a disguise, she should appear fuzzy and indistinct, possibly tinged with red. He saw none of that. He switched prisms, and again she appeared normal. He set the prisms down and picked up his silver pyramid, moving it up her arm past the wrist. What is this one? She asked. Astral plane detector. If you've been to the astral plane, it will react. I see. Are you expecting such a thing? Possibly. I've encountered it before. The astral plane is... Why, I know all about it, she replied. His detector remained inert. He put it away and ran his crimson holystone down her arm, rolling it along her skin. This one should detect the presence of soul devourers. Oh my! Well, this is a key test, then. Is it reacting? Stenstrom took the crimson holystone and held it close to his face, examining it for damage. No, it's not. Well then, Lily said happily, tapping her fingers on the table, it's settled, per your instrumentality. I'm no soul devourer. He held the crimson holystone to the lantern lens, dousing it in the strong yellow light, further inspecting it. This apparition had to be a soul devourer. She had to be. He noticed the lantern. It wasn't just an ordinary lantern one might see anywhere. It was exquisite. It was made of beaten copper, molded and inlaid with lapis, gold, silver, and garnets. Its lens was some sort of flawless crystal, and the light coming from it wasn't produced by a conventional power source like a battery pack or a filament or nanotech, nor was it a candle in mere flame. It was some sort of arcane glow. What is this? He asked in wonder. Lily stood and put her arms around him. I borrowed the lantern from home. I need to have it back soon, and it'll be quickly missed. I think it's called Paramel. It illuminates much. He moved his olive holystone along the lantern's copper face. It rattled steadily. What is that? Lily asked. This holystone detects the presence of the arcane. See? The holystone created steady noise next to the lantern. He took it and moved the olive stone along Lily's arm. It continued to rattle. Ah, he said, look here. Well, it seems to be making quite a lot of noise, Lily remarked. Yes, it does, and that means you are of the arcane as well. He expected her to protest or make some sort of plausible argument against her being of the arcane. But of course I'm of the arcane, Belle, she replied, smiling. Lily, my Lily, is not of the arcane. She is a sweet, wholesome girl of Esther. She is rooted in the mundane. She laughed. Oh, Belle, can it be you have never put things in the proper perspective all this time? It's really rather shocking considering your training. I should think you'd have an eye for such things. She rolled her eyes back in fond remembrance. I remember seeing you as a little boy as you walked down Tyrol Lane, running away from home. Remember that? I fell in love with you right there and then, I think. Stenstrom froze. He remembered that event from his childhood, the Fox Park, the woman in gray, the terror it still inspired in him, how alone he felt. That was just a dream. No, it wasn't, Belle, and you know it. Then that means you're the lady in gray, the woman in the hat who tried to kill me. Well, I've never worn gray a day in my life, Belle, and I would never try to kill you. If I would have stayed and witnessed what transpired that night in the park, I would have helped you. There would be no lady in gray today, for I'd have killed her. Are you a killer, Lily? She seemed stung a bit. No, but... Lily took a moment and composed herself. She moved on to another topic. And then there was that time during your training in the culvert, under your manor grounds, when you walked away from your mother. I was there with you, Belle. I didn't know you then. But I knew you. And I was there that time at the university. He stood there staring at her. What are you, Lily? She held out her hand. Well, come. Let me show you. Come see. He went to take her hand and then stopped himself. But Taara and A-Ram, they're safe. I swear it. He stood there wondering if he could actually trust her or not. Belle, I swear, your friends are safe. Finally, Stenstrom took Lily's hand. With her free hand, she picked up the lantern and they went deep into the priory, following the penetrating yellow beam of the lantern. Very quickly, he no longer felt like he was on the Seeker. He felt the temperature change from a cold staleness of the ship to a cool humid of early night. Leaves crunched under his boots. Overhead he saw familiar evening stars in a clear azure sky. Is this Cana? He asked. Where else? How can we be on Cana? Lily didn't answer. She skipped along and hummed, swinging the lantern with its eternal beam, panning back and forth. They seemed to be moving through a dense needle-tree forest. The lantern cut a clear path through the murky trees. Lily was invigorated and childlike. The Lily he knew was reserved and composed. Ah, home, home, she cried. It feels so good. This landscape doesn't look like Gamboa, Stenstrom said. I'm not from Gamboa, Belle. I went there once out of curiosity, and I didn't like it much. So swampy and closed in, too overcast. Lily twirled around, enjoying the cool, damp air, the lantern rattling in her hand. This is where I'm from. She beamed. Oh, you must have so many questions for me, and at long last, I'm going to answer. I'm going to introduce myself to you, Belle, properly this time. Nothing will be left to chance. They crossed a shallow creek flowing with cold water and came into a clearing. Far off to the north was a tumbled barricade of massive gray mountains frosted in snow. Only one place possessed a mountain range like that on Cana, Vithland, the lands of his friend and mentor, Captain Davidge. Are we in Vithland, Lily? She laughed. Come on, just a bit further. Continuing through the clearing, Lily became more and more excited. She giggled and bounced on the balls of her feet. You don't know how long I've wanted to share all this with you. Then why didn't you? Because they make me tell you lies? I don't like lying. It doesn't seem right. Who? Who makes you tell lies? Again, Lily didn't respond. They entered into a small glade. The ruins of some ancient Vish structure sat in the center of it. It was mostly down the foundation, sunk into the ground and mirror-like, with a coating of cold, shallow water. The ruins continued on to the west and were apparently quite extensive. This is an old chapter house where the people used to meet. There's still a little left of them here in the water. This is where I come to find things out. This is where I've watched you from. Watched him? Lily's been watching him from afar? The thought gave him a rather uncomfortable feeling. He was square with the notion of looking in on other people, but not being looked in on himself. I do not like the idea of you spying on me, Lily, he said. Well, I'm sorry, she replied, rather perfunctorily. Lily approached a protruding buttress and placed a lantern on top of it. She then pulled off her shoes and waded into the shallow water, savoring the feeling. Come on in, Belle, the water feels so good. Lily, I've not the time. She wouldn't give in. Come on in, Belle. There are things I want to show you. He sighed and removed his HRN, folding it up and placing next to the chapter house foundation. Without removing his boots, he waded in. The water was shallow, barely covering his shins, and Lily giggled. All right, Lily, I'm in the water with you. What did you want to show me? She splashed to the lantern and pointed the lens at him, engulfing him in the yellow beam. Does this light hurt your eyes? She asked. No. Good. That means you're not evil then, she said with a wink. Lily opened a small door near the lens. Inside was a yellowish, faceted crystal mounted on its point so that it could rotate on its axis. She gave it a fast spin. Globes of multicolored light came drifting out of the lantern, racing through the water in rapid, circular pools. I wanted to show you what I've seen, Belle. I can help you. I want to help you. A blue circle of light moved through the water. In it, an image formed. It was that of a small fleet vessel, white, with a central saucer and 3 curved tubes arranged around the saucer. It looked like a fleet scouting ship. The ship was studded with the barrels of run-out guns. I've seen this ship quite a bit lately. I think the lady captaining it is hoping to bring you in so she can gloat. In the pool of blue light, the stern, unsmiling face of Captain Gwendolyn came into focus. Tall, her brown hair pulled back into her hat, given a wide berth by her crew. Her rapier was drawn and held fast in a strong hand. She's a Xenon woman, Lily added. I think Xenon women are very snobby, don't you? Not your type at all. She's coming to kill you, Belle. Look at her sword. Look at the guns ready to fire. Her ship is small compared to yours, but it functions, and she has a crew, and she's armed. I can take care of her for you, if you like, Belle. Would you like that? Take care of her? How so? There's no priory on a scouting ship, so you have no way to get aboard. Lily blushed. I have my ways. Stenstrom watched the image of the scouting ship as it glided through space, hot on his trail and studded with guns, and a captain with a drawn sword. No, Lily, I can deal with it myself when the time comes. Are you certain? Of course. Lily splashed up to him and stood on the tops of his submerged boots. Oh, you are so quaint, Belle. That's why I love you. You have such resources available to you, and you choose to forego them and accomplish things the hard way. What if this Xenon woman aboard the scouting ship shoots her way aboard your ship? You'll lose your chair and will certainly be sent back to the fleet and possibly barred into trial. You could face censure or worse. Let me deal with her. I've a good ship, even unpowered, unarmed, and unlit, and my crew is the best. I mean, all 2 of them? They are all I require. Lily laughed. All right, Belle, have it your way. When I'm rescuing you from prison, as I'm certain I shall soon be doing, don't ever forget that I offered to spare you such an inconvenience. He struggled to make sense of all of this. Though Lily was speaking plainly, she was never more cryptic. How is she doing this? How is she doing any of it? Lily adjusted the lantern. Let me show you a few more things. As the blue pool of light containing the image of Captain Gwendolyn went out, it was replaced by a green one moving across the water. In the light, Stenstrom saw an odd, lumpy shape, green in color, like a great bean sprout. He looked closer, and there were two heads sticking out of the sprout. One had blonde hair. A-Ram? Yes, it was A-Ram, and Stenstrom thought at first that A-Ram had been devoured by a gigantic plant, with only his head sticking out. On second glance, he saw that A-Ram was actually sitting on the ground, huddled up next to a second person, whom Stenstrom didn't know. It was a female with pinned up black hair. She was wearing a vast green cloak and had it draped around A-Ram, sharing it with him. It looked like a comfortable place to be. Do you know who that woman is? I recognize Lord A-Ram. Well, no, I don't. I am quite fond of Lord A-Ram. Stenstrom was confused. You are? Have you met him before? In a fashion, enough to know his heart. He set me free. Stenstrom had no idea what to make of that. The green circle of light faded and was replaced by a red one. Look at this one, Belle. I've also been seeing this. In the red light, he saw a mass of chaotic movement, like looking into a beehive. The bits of movement seemed to be a multitude of tiny machinery, squared off, finely crafted and etched, moving in an orderly confusion. There were 4 distinct colors to the tiny machines: yellow, blue, green, and red. Stenstrom and Lily watched as the tiny machines separated themselves into their respective colors, and then began forming roughly man-shaped masses. Do you know what these are? Lily asked. No. Looks like robotistry or nanotech. It's not my area. Lily gazed at the tiny machines buzzing with movement. Well, whatever they are, they mean you no good, Belle. Of that I'm certain. Look! In the red light, a man was on his knees, surrounded and hacked to pieces, moments away from death. I'm worried for you, Belle. I can handle myself. Did you not see that? I think that man on his knees was you. Lily gazed at the circle of light. I've been searching for these men or machines or whatever they are. Well, so far they've eluded me, but when I find them, I'm going to finish them, for no one will put my lord on his knees. No one. There was a hard edge to Lily's voice. The image faded. The last thing Stenstrom saw was a great yellow circle swirling in the water. I see this circle a lot when I look on you, Belle. Circles and circles. Stenstrom observed the circle. He could see faces locked within its boundaries. He saw himself and Taara and A-Ram. Odd, he saw the squared-off yet pretty face of his pursuer, Lieutenant Gwendolyn. He also saw 4 tall figures swaying in the background. Surrounding the circle was a 5th figure, clad in gray, rapidly approaching. Clad in gray. The woman from his Fox Park nightmare, the astral traveler. He looked away, and when he looked back, the images in the circle were gone. Lily rose up and kissed him, and for a moment he forgot about his situation and his crew, and that this creature, with apparently vast arcane capabilities, couldn't possibly be Lily. The kiss felt like Lily. It had her warmth and feeling. What could she be? What was she? He should be impassive and calculating, as his mother taught him when faced with the arcane, collecting data, demanding answers, sorting out truth from conjecture. But come to think of it, Mother had hand-picked Lily herself. She picked her not merely for her grace and beauty, before her normalcy, her seemingly entrenched hold on the mundane and the well-trodden. Mother hadn't wanted a sorceress for his son, another Tyrol graduate of the black schools, a brewer of potions and caster of spells. She wanted a quiet, unremarkable woman, someone stately and of society, to sit in the parlor and love her son as a proper lady should, balancing his forays into the dark woods of sorcery with the more well-lit paths of the mundane world. And she'd picked Lily. Nothing odd about Lily, nothing supernatural about Lily. But look, here's Lily appearing from nowhere. Lily possessing some sort of vast power with access to arcane devices like the Paramel. Lily triggering his arcane detectors. Lily fooling his mother into thinking she was from unremarkable Gamboa, when she was in fact from the wilds of Vithland in an area simply crawling with the arcane. Lily was some sort of monster. But all that mattered little at the moment. Her embrace was comforting, her kiss sweet and familiar, bringing back all those memories of the woman he loved. She leaned against him. He could feel the ovular shape of the locket in his breast pocket, pressing against his heart. He put his arms around her, savoring her feel. "I take back my false words, Belle," she said between kisses. "I don't want 5 years. I never did. I want you now, with me forever. Make me yours." I've always been yours, Lily, as before. I extend you my hand." "And I accept! I accept! I accept!" She leaned back and shouted into the cool air, "I accept!" She screamed it as if to make her voice heard to those listening from afar. "And now it's time I told you exactly what I am, so that you'll understand. A horn sounded in the distance, filling the clearing and chapter house ruins with a melancholy note. Lily's demeanor instantly changed. She cut herself off in mid-sentence, cringed and scowled. She stomped through the shallow water and kicked. "No!" she screamed. "It's not fair! It's not fair! I'm not ready!" "What?" Stenstrom asked. "They're calling me. I thought I'd have more time." "Who are?" "Them!" Lily pointed. Through the trees, Stenstrom thought he could see a dome structure made of gray stone. A door slid open. Sitting inside were 4 indistinct figures. The horn sounded again, and the wooded setting became cloudy. Stenstrom felt himself being pulled back into the dark confines of the Seeker, leaving Vithland and Lily behind. "They did it, Belle!" Lily shouted as he was pulled away. "They did it all!" The next moment, Stenstrom was back aboard the Seeker, the yellow light of the lantern fading. "Remember, Belle," came the ghost of Lily's voice. "You just extended me your hand, and I'm not giving it back." He was standing in the darkened rooms of the Priory. What had he just seen? Was that apparition really Lily? He hadn't felt threatened. It seemed like Lily, smelled like Lily, felt like her. The olive holystone had determined Lily was of an arcane nature. Lily had always seemed so grounded to him, so steady and sure, painting her pictures in Gamboa. She was a rock of sanity and sure footing in an occasional turbid shoreline of mysticism and fog-shrouded places his mother took him to. And now it was proved she is of the arcane. "I'm not from Gamboa, Belle. She might not even be human." He pressed on into the depths of the Priory, finding nothing but overturned chairs and unmade beds, the sisters long gone, and all the magic sucked out of the place. "A-Ram!" he cried. "Taara!" No answer. His mind spun. Lily not from Gamboa. Lily something other than just a beautiful woman. He reached a locked door. He took a moment to replace the bad striker in his nth and discarded the cracked one. Lily couldn't have been a soul devourer in disguise, or she would have attacked. Soul devourers were driven by their lust and hunger for souls. Even the one that was supposed to lead him to Taara and A-Ram couldn't resist and attacked him en route. Lily didn't attack him. Gods, what did Lady Alatrix say? I don't know what she is, Belle, but she's not a woman. And Callie, that time at the dock. I saw you walking down the street with a mannequin. He pulled on the door harder and it wouldn't budge. Locked tight. What did Callie see? What was Alatrix sensing? What was Lily? She had been on the verge of telling him, but had been summoned by her masters, whoever they were, whatever she was. He had just offered her his hand, and that, given the circumstances, probably wasn't wise. He had just committed himself to some sort of monster. He sashed his ints and had his lockpicks ready with a wave of his hand. He stuck the probe in and tested the lock. Though the door appeared old and simple, its lock was complex, very sophisticated, and trapped. He could feel a coiled needle hidden behind the lock's workings, ready to spring. They did it. They did it all, Lily had said. Who is they? Stenstrom shuddered to find out. He selected his picks and skillfully worked the lock, disarming the needle in the process. Soon the lock was picked clean. He put his picks back into his HRN and drew his ints. He pulled the door open and something behind it fell out to the floor with a limp thud. A thin, sinewy arm lay there. It was a slender arm, like a lady's, smooth and delicate, only the hand at the end of the arm gave it away that it was something more sinister. The fingers curled, gnarled, and studded with claws. Stenstrom swung the door open wide and aimed down, ready to fire. A soul devourer lay there, its gigantic mouth and elongated tongue lolled on the floor. It appeared to be dead. It smoked slightly. He knelt down into the grit and inspected its body. Its neck appeared to be broken, and only recently so. It was still warm. Taking no chances, he put 2-inch shots into it, and it collapsed into ash. Beyond the door was a long corridor. Continuing on, he found another soul devourer smashed up on the floor, then another, both dead. More bodies waited for him further down. Look at them, piled up in heaps, hanging from the ceiling, curled up on the ground. A vast number of them, more than he cared to count. All dead. Some were arranged in fanciful post-mortem positions. Some were lying there holding hands, and some were propped up against each other, chest to chest, fingers interlaced like they were dancing. Several were seated at a small table as if they were having a tea party. All dead bodies pushed into seated positions all around the table in the illusion of merriment, their tongues all tied together at the center and knotted. What had happened here? Could Lily have done all this? Killed all these supernatural creatures by herself? How? The corridor ended in a transparent dome that jutted out of the underbelly of the ship, lit up in stars and some sort of bright yellowish cloud that seethed with energy. He wondered what it was for a moment. Oh, it's Drury's belt. He remembered. The Sisters' Dome was some sort of meeting place lined with consoles that rolled and sputtered with hazy life. Wooden benches lined the dome like a courtroom. This must be the heart of the Priory, a place only the Sisters had previously seen. More soul devourers everywhere, dead, mangled, pushed up against the dome, slumped over the railing, one dangling by its tongue from a light fixture. In the center of the dome was a wooden dice. 2 figures were slumped atop it. Taara and A-Ram. He made his way to the top of the dice. Taara and A-Ram appeared to be both submerged in a deep sleep. They were warm, and their pulses were good. Taara was sitting there in her white, untucked shirt and woolen socks. A-Ram's molly gleamed around her neck. As before, she snored slightly. A pink slip of paper was stuffed into A-Ram's coat pocket. It read, I told you they would be fine. Lily. Taara, he said, trying to wake her up. Taara! He tapped her twice on the cheek, and she didn't awake. It was the same with A-Ram. Deep in sleep, he hoisted two of them over his shoulder and carried them out. They were both so light, like carrying children. He went down the long corridor, passing all the carnage along the way. He was glad they weren't awake to see any of it. All the bodies, the charnel house of soul devourers, all killed and posed by Lily. Recent events sorted themselves out in his mind. Lily, no longer a stately girl from Gamboa. Lily, an arcane being of great strength. I accept. Lily, a killer. I accept. Lily, his betrothed. I accept. He made his way out of the priory and back down the long corridor to the bridge, the ship serenading them with haunted chants the entire way. Up the lift shaft and back into the bridge they went like nothing ever happened, save for the troubling thoughts rolling through Stenstrom's head. Soul devourers. Lily in the dark. I accept. And with that, we conclude the very long Chapter 3, The Demon. Although that didn't seem that long in the reading. I actually liked that chapter quite a bit. I like to think I'm pretty good at creating surprising situations. I'm curious, was Lily appearing out of nowhere surprising? Did it catch you off guard? Were you expecting it? Did you realize that Lily had met Stenstrom long before their initial meeting when his mother introduced them? That she had been there at the Fox Park, and she had been there underground during his training. It's in there. It's in the text. If you look back to that chapter where Stenstrom tries to run away from home, before he encounters the woman in gray, he sees a figure gazing at him from across the street. And then, when he walked away from his mother in the culvert, and he kept on going, he encountered something that called his name, if you remember correctly. That was Lily. 2 times. And now, Lily reveals herself to be some sort of arcane creature. A creature that can handle hordes of soul devourers. A creature that has access to incredibly arcane instrumentality. The Paramel is a Noab, and it's in some of the stories I'm working on right now where the Paramel, and I did a blog post called The Romance of the Paramel, where the Noabs are 25 arcane items of insane power created by the elders before they passed on into oblivion. And the Noabs were created to create mystery and remind the people of the elders of the things that they once created and so forth. And they were meant to be out amongst the people and enjoyed. But the sisters, being the sisters, collected all of them and hid them behind their fences and fastness and hoarded them for themselves. One of the Noabs is a lantern called the Paramel, and it, of all of them, wants to fulfill the Elder's mission. It wants to be among the people, to inspire them, and it has escaped from the sisters many times. It hung as a lantern in the city of Saga. It hung in the Hall of Ethers in the monastery of Aldervale, or Aldervale Convent on Baz. And they were having a dance one night, and one of the girls working at the convent was sent by the elders of the convent to go into town in the city of Cana Jana and get a lantern. They needed one for their dance hall. She went to a crappy stand and bought this lantern for just a few Baz credits, and that was the freaking Paramel. And they hung it, and then they soon realized that this lamp was a lot more than just a lantern. Where its light went, they could follow and go to distant places, distant lands, and both in the past and the future. And they began to call this dance hall where the Paramel hung the Hall of Ethers. And in all these occasions when the Paramel escapes, the sisters always find it and bring it back home. And so like when they found it in Saga, they burned this lamppost it was hanging from to the ground. Although the light from it remains, even though it's gone, it's still there. It once orbited Cana as a moon, and the sisters took it, but the light was still there, and they call it the Great White Streak. The lamppost where it hung from in Saga regrew. It was twisted and gnarled, but it regrew back. And the people say that the light from the lantern is still there. In Aldervale Convent, once the sisters reclaimed the lantern, they wanted to blow the convent scorch it from the land, but the lantern wouldn't let them because they had used it in a good and chaste fashion. So that's the lantern. That's the Paramel, a magical artifact with a lot of personality. It doesn't just sit there and be a MacGuffin. It drives its own. It has its own will, and it drives its own plot. And Lily has a hold of it, and through it they see some pretty creepy things. They see Stenstrom on his knees ready to be killed. So we will get to that later on. The lantern's usually not wrong about these things. It shows him Lieutenant Gwendolyn after him with her guns drawn and with her sword drawn. And he sees A-Ram in the arms of somebody, and he doesn't know who, but somebody. So that was nice. So I'm curious. Again, was Lily's appearance shocking? Did you expect that? Did it surprise you? Did you, like Stenstrom, think Lily was just a stately lady, kind of an aloof lady? But apparently all that aloofness and that stateliness had been forced upon her, and that 5-year plan that Lily had insisted they follow wasn't of her design. It was something she was made to do by someone, by them, and they mentioned them. And Stenstrom encountered them on the way to rescuing Taara and A-Ram, those 4 figures he saw in the dark. He sees them again under a gray dome of stone, and they seem to be calling the shots, whoever they are. We will find out more next week. Next week is the very last chapter of the first part of the Belmont Saga, Sands of the Solar Empire. It's chapter 4. It's called Drury's Belt, and it's only a few pages long. And then we go to book 2, Against the Druries, and I'll probably read the first chapter there. It's just called The Deep Sea. So this is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren. Peace out.